Welcome back everybody to the 9th episode in TerraFirmaGreg. In the last episode we finally got our first LV setup. As you can see, I'm currently producing a bunch of rubber which I'm gonna turn all into sheets, because these, if we were to make them the normal way, it would take double and triple the amount of rubber. And we're gonna need a lot of cables going forward. Looking at the quest book, currently we are not getting the quests because I forgot to get the gas turbine because I didn't check this thing, so we're gonna have to fix that eventually. We are basically in this area because we've got the solidifier and the chemical reactor, as well as 5 of these 6 machines. We do have the ULV mixer, but the LV one can actually make red steel and blue steel. So that's the first thing I want to do today, because I want to get a bunch of those. And aside from that machine, I'm not entirely sure where I want to go in terms of technology. I think I want to get the liquid extractor, the basic assembler, probably into batteries, but I don't really know if these are actually worth it. And then I just think we need to make our way towards the third machine hull and our first MV circuit. But I don't want to ignore everything else in this system. For example, this seems like a great secondary objective. Okay, it's not even secondary, it's literally part of the progress. But let's start from the beginning, because the first thing I want to do today is build a second floor for this factory and place the ULV machines on top, and have probably something like 4 more windmills powering all of them, so that we can either have like pairs of 2 machines running at the same time, or even like a windmill powering a single machine, because this system is way too temporary. I want to get stuff properly done, and this is not proper at all. So let's begin with that. Here our barley field has kept growing through the winter, which is kind of insane. I was not expecting this plant to be able to do that. And as you can see, our cellar is stacked with grains, so I think it's also time to actually start making some sandwiches when we start eating. Okay, I've now started building the second floor of the factory, and I actually wanted to try crafting something I wanted to try a bit of time ago, which is a building wand. I don't know how this works specifically. I think it allows us to place more blocks at the same time. Wow, that's wrong. Okay. I've asked on the Discord server, and they told me that the reason I could not place slabs the way I wanted is because I had to disable the placement logic, which is what allows you to basically place a slab normally or have the different system to place it vertically or on the floor and stuff like that. Okay, for some reason we have this smoke coming out from, I think the vacuum chambers are underneath here. But now we also have access to our balconies, which don't really have the best view and instead what I want to do is prepare 4 more windmills. Okay, for the cloth I've just been to the beneath and I've gathered a whole bunch of silk from the cobwebs, and now I need to spend 500 million years using these looms to actually process it. Okay, now we should have everything we need for the windmills, although I think we're lacking the shafts, so I need to make a bunch of steel ones. So these should be everything we need for the frames. Yes. And the sails. Now, for the windmill itself, we're gonna need the casing. And that's it. Now we can just make all the steel shafts we should need. And now I just need to figure out how to actually place this stuff, because I want it to be symmetrical and well spaced out. Okay, I think something like this should work. Okay, we finally set up the 5 windmills I wanted to add, and this is gonna look so cool when I add some kind of chimney to actually house them, because right now they don't look structurally sound at all. For now, I think this is the layout I want to go for. I just basically spaced them out in pairs, except for the roll and mill, because it's the only one that I think needs to run at full speed. But I'm gonna try and figure out what's the best combination for the amount of speed we need and the amount of stress units each machine consumes. But regardless of placement, to actually use all of this stuff properly, I'm gonna need to make a lot of cogs and a lot of rotation speed controllers. Okay, now we have everything we need for 4 more rotation speed controllers, and instead these 2 are kind of the odd ones out because they're actually a lower tier of machinery. They basically take down the max capacity from 128 to 32, so it doesn't really make sense to actually use them, but we're gonna need them. So I think it's gonna be much better if we just get the steel version. And now I also want to start cooking some of the food I'm getting from our animals, because otherwise it's pointless to even have them, you know? And now I also want to start preparing some sandwiches. And now with these ingredients we can finally make some sandwiches that don't suck. Look at the amount of nutrients we get from this. And also, looking at the recipe for ice blocks, I saw that we can actually make them with the fluid solidifier. And these are gonna be really useful because we can use them here, I think. Yes, to preserve our food. Yeah, this is as if it was in a cellar. And now I also want to finally set up our health hammers, for which I'm gonna need 2 colored anvils. Okay. Now I want to make a couple of rubber mechanical belts, because these are now cheaper than the leather ones. Although I don't think we're actually gonna need them. I think I can make this work with just 1 belt. And I also want to craft some funnels. Now, if I do something like this, get my anvil... Get my anvils under there, under here, here, and here. I think I also want a hopper, which is pretty simple to craft. I also want a couple of crates. And if I also make a chute, I think this can work. I need to try with some wrought iron ingots, but first I need to actually give power to the whole system. Okay, so now with some more gearboxes, if I go with something like this... Okay, now everything's getting power. I need to test this. Luckily I have a fresh bloomery for the occasion. Okay, so now if I throw this here... Okay, it's working then. Okay, this works. It's just not getting out from the other funnel. Because it was the wrong way around. Okay. Okay. This, I think, is my first actual automation line. And this also means we no longer need to use the forge hammer at all, I think. Because we were using these for plates and for processing blooms and stuff. So if we no longer need to do either of those, this is also a lot faster. And this is also perfect because now I want to go and make a whole bunch of red and blue steel. But to actually do that, it's gonna be much more efficient if I just make an electrical mixer. So this is nothing new, of course. But regardless, it's still a bunch of work, so I need to get to it. Okay, as you can see, I've built a second bloomery, and for the past couple of days I've just spent all of the iron that we mined and that is melted here in the steam furnace to process it all into pig iron and raw iron blooms. And the reason for making this much now is of course because we now have a proper line able to process all of these. Okay, as you can see, all the iron and steel has finished processing, and here in my backpack I've got a whole bunch of materials which we're gonna use to make the next few machines. And it seems the machine is running backwards, but yes, I can just turn around the rotation speed controller. Now, same thing for the vacuum tubes. Okay, that's so many. Okay, yes, 24, because we're gonna need 12 of each for the electronic circuit, of course. But before that, I actually need to craft the circuit boards. And also I'm using 4 times copper wires, because as you can see, this is gonna give us 4 circuit boards at a time, so we need to do the knapping less times. And now, we just need to do the same thing as we've done for the tubes. And that's 12 more basic electronic circuits. And now, here in this crate, I had already prepared the materials for the mixer and the extractor. But now the mixer, you can see, is extremely simple. It's just a rotor, a motor, glass, and the circuits. And instead, the extractor, the only new component is actually the piston, which is just a bunch of steel stuff and a motor. So it was nothing too demanding. Which I guess we can place... Okay, I think I want the extractor to be beside the solidifier. It's gonna be used by the solidifier the same way the chemical reactor is. And instead the mixer can just go here. And now I actually want to use the mixer, but to do that we're gonna have to mix mineral dusts. So we're gonna make a steel millstone before we actually go on to that. And to make it, we are just gonna need some smooth stone, which we can easily make using a chisel on raw stone. Diamond dust, which we can easily make by grinding diamonds, of course. How did we get 3 from 4? Huh? Instead, the treated wood and the steel shaft are no problem, same for the tools. We just need to smith a steel gear. And these should already be all. Yes. Okay, and now the first thing I want to get with this new steel millstone is... oh wow, this is fast. I basically want to get the materials component for black steel in dust form. So that's gonna be 3 parts steel, 1 part nickel, 1 part black bronze. And this is gonna give us pure black steel dust. Pure in the sense that if we just heat this up and cast it, we're gonna get pure black steel ingots. We're not gonna have to get the weak one, weld it with pig iron, and then get the high carbon one and hammer it. We are just gonna get the normal black steel. So now, if we mix all of this, and I think we need to set the circuit number 1. Okay, wow, that's slow. But this, in due time, is gonna give us the black steel dust. There it is. Sadly, we cannot actually cook this into the furnace. We actually have to use the crucible. And instead, the extractor, we are gonna be able to use it to get our first permanent lighting source, which is not the first in the sense that it's the first we can get progression-wise, but it's the first we'll ever get in this series. And we're gonna get it by basically melting glowstone and then solidifying it into a block. So if we just add a block cast, or a block mold, we can get glowstone, finally. So we're finally gonna have some light in our base. So now we finally have a tad bit of lighting, and I'm also gonna place them in the ceiling. And we are definitely gonna need a lot more, but if we grind a lot of this steel, as well as the components for blue and red steel, we're gonna be able to do the same thing we did for the black one, and mix them into their dusts. So now we can actually start processing red steel dust. Also, something really cool we can now make with the solidifier and the extractor is actually make a rotor mold, which we're gonna be able to use alongside the solidifier and the extractor by melting the metals into the solidifier and immediately using the casting mold with 4 ingots to make a rotor without needing to go through all the process we have to go through to actually craft it. Okay, now I've started preparing for crafting the next 2 machines, which are just gonna be the centrifuge, which as you can see is actually extremely simple to make. We already have all the circuits, I've already made the motors and we already have the wires, and now I've just melted some red steel to make the machine hull. And instead the assembler is gonna be the more difficult one, because we're gonna need the conveyor modules, which as you can see is no problem at all. We already have the rubber and the motors, but the real monster here is the robot arms. We're gonna need 2 of these, and these require their own circuit, which probably makes this the most expensive component yet, but they're not too bad either. And right now I'm just preparing the steel cogs, with which we can already make the pistons. And now here in the backpack I was preparing the materials needed for all the components for the assembler. And we can already make the 2 robot arms, as well, yes, as the conveyor modules. And instead, in this chest here, I was preparing all the materials for all the different components. Here we're just missing the red steel plates. So now if we grab everything and go make the plates, we can go and make 3 hulls. And the first machine I want to make is the battery buffer, which we currently cannot use, but this is basically gonna make it so we're gonna be able to store some energy inside of this. And as you have seen with everything we've done so far, having buffers is really important for actually processing stuff, because the single machines are not able to hold as much power as we need them to. Then the centrifuge, which I'm not entirely sure what is needed for. Okay, these lets us get more byproducts from processing dusts, and I'm sure we're gonna need some of these byproducts going forward. But the last and most expensive machine is gonna be the assembler, which I know is important because it has a bigger icon in the questbook. And this is gonna reduce the cost of these 3 components, which are the 3 main things we use for making circuits. I do want to get into batteries, so we're gonna need the battery alloy plate, which is made with antimony and lead. And antimony, the book said we can get from stibnite. So we're gonna have to look for that, and this is gonna allow us to get into batteries and also use the buffer we made. And also, yes, we can use the centrifuge for making glue. And okay, the best way to get oxygen, because I think this is the next material we need to go forward, because we're gonna need a lot of annealed copper, I think, is gonna be making a gas collector and centrifuging the air we get from it. And this doesn't seem too bad to craft, aside from the fluid filter, which requires this sodalite, which I'm not sure, or lapis. I have lapis. I think I found some in the beneath, so we can do a lapis plate. Then yeah, okay, I think the next step is gonna be making a gas collector to make oxygen and centrifuging it. And then I guess we're gonna need to use that oxygen in the arc furnace to get the copper we need. And these, okay, this is so easy. Yeah, the arc furnace is so easy to make, okay, perfect. And for now, I think that's gonna be it. But before actually getting into all of this, I'm gonna need to go mine all of this stuff, so I think we can go into a quick montage. And under here, there's a bunch of stibnite. Okay, all in all, this is the iron I've got. And this is the total haul from this mining trip. It's of course not a lot, I'm still lacking some proper tools to actually go and absolutely demolish veins. Wow, that was so loud. Okay, right now to actually get everything we're gonna need, I want to set up the basic assembler as well as the centrifuge. And I want to start using the assembler to start producing a great amount of electron tubes and vacuum tubes, as well as resistors. As you can see, making these in the assembler spares us the medium density fiberboard, which is not too big of a save, but it's still a save, and I'll take it. Okay, so now if we go into the assembler and we drop these amounts and set the circuit to 14. Yes, we can start making electron tubes really easily. And we can do the same thing for the vacuum tubes. Also, I just found out that we can actually use the fluid solidifier and the extractor to make glass tubes much more easily. Oh wait, because we're out of syngas. Okay. Let's make a pump. Actually, a couple of pumps. Now our syngas is gonna be constantly pumped into the turbine generator. Like this. In this case we are saving steel, but we're also getting double the amount, so it's really just a great system all around. Also, with the solidifier we can actually get sticky resin more easily. And also get glue by centrifuging the resin in the centrifuge. And now we can centrifuge all of this, which is also gonna give us carbon dust, which we can use to make resistors. So, I mean, it's not like we really need it, but centrifuging resin is gonna give us 2 of the 3 materials we need to make resistors. And in the meantime, we can also start preparing the stuff we're gonna need for the next few machines, such as the 2 pumps we need for the gas collector. We've already got enough glue to make all the resistors we need. I think I can just, yeah, put it in here. And I hope this is making resistors, because I didn't check what the circuit was for. Okay, yes. Okay, all the resistors are done, and we've actually got a lot more than I was thinking. For the fluid filter, we still need to make that lapis plate. Okay, to get the lapis plates, we're gonna first need to get some lapis. Now, if we compress these into a block... Okay, as I was fearing, we actually need to make a steel saw. So we actually need to make this cobalt brass butt saw. And I think for this, I'm actually gonna go with the plan of attacking this village that's south of us, because I'm fairly certain the mobs there drop tools and weapons made of this material. Because I also wanted to explore this village, I still haven't even come close to it. And now I'm definitely strong enough. We've got a straw basket, isn't this like... Yeah, it's inventory space. Although these people seem to have stone tools. Why would you keep a jar of guano in your home? Okay. Where did that guy go? Oh! He's invisible! I'm actually gonna die from an invisible dude. Okay, this one did. Oh, the invisible dude. Okay, yes, we've got a shovel. We've got a hoe. Flint club. Okay, we've got 100 millibuckets of cobalt brass. We need like 288. Okay. Okay, cobalt brass knife. To me. Oh, didn't see you there, sorry. My bad. Am I gonna have to go elsewhere to look for the last tools I need? Yeah, no, I'm gonna need to go elsewhere to actually look for the remaining cobalt brass I need, and I think I'm gonna go over here. Okay, round 2. Nothing and nothing. A bow. Which I'm actually gonna use, you know what? Screw you. Oh, no, I'm bad. Okay, that just jumped off. Okay, it's literally parrying it, okay. Oh, come on. Okay, I am back, and this time I brought a bed. Okay. These should be enough. Yeah, that's enough. Sadly, we literally died like at the last possible moment before finding the cobalt brass. Now we can go ahead and smelt all of these. And I also want to prepare a new wrench, because the one we have is almost done, and I want to make a red steel one. Now we also have our 2 cobalt brass ingots. Now we just need a ULV machine casing. Been a while since we made one of these. And that's it. We finally got the last of the ULV machines we were missing. Now I also need to straight up use this to make the bolts for the wrench. But we can also use this to make our lapis plates. And that's our wrench. Now I also wanted to make a whole bunch of pumps, because we're gonna use them to make some super tanks. I also need some cogwheels, so that's so annoying to make. Can I like already make the machine that makes the cogs? No. Yes! Wait, yes! I can just do one of these. Yes, I'm doing that. I'm doing that immediately. That's pretty simple to make. Huh? Small pipe. Now that's what I want. The extractor is gonna melt it into, I think, yeah, molten wrought iron. This is so quick! Okay, that's amazing. In the meantime, I've also got the zinc foils and the lapis plate to make the fluid filter. And I've also prepared the materials to make an electrolyzer, because these, we're gonna use it to, I think, electrolyze seawater. Not sure for what exactly. Okay, it's gonna give us a bunch of stuff. And the reason I'm making a few pumps is because one of them is gonna be feeding seawater to the electrolyzer constantly. Although most of them are gonna be used to make super tanks, as well as to actually move fluids to and out of super tanks. Okay, now I think we have everything we need to make a bunch of circuits. Sadly, we're not gonna be able to have a simpler recipe until we get the circuit assembler, which is actually a medium voltage machinery, so that's kind of off limits for now. Alright, we also need the circuit boards, which we can actually make in the assembler this time. And this also saves a whole bunch of copper, because we just need 4 foils, which is 1 plate, which is 1 ingot. There it goes. Resin printed circuit board with basically no work. Wait. Oh, we're out of glue. Okay, wait. This is the most scuffed way I've ever had to pillar in my entire life. That's so many circuits. Actually, it's not that many, but the ease at which we're able to actually make them now is outstanding. And that's it. That's the gas collector, as well as the electrolyzer. Both of these are gonna have to run constantly. So I think I'm gonna make a gas turbine generator dedicated to these 2 alone, as well as one for a third system, which is gonna be basically a passive way to constantly generate rubber, which is gonna make use of a chemical reactor, a solidifier, and then a third chemical reactor. And I also think I'm gonna need some rubber blocks. And with these systems, we're gonna have a bunch of gases and materials, basically, that are just gonna run passively while we do everything else. And eventually we're gonna fill up some super tanks, but as you can see, these are 1 million millibuckets, so I'm gonna start having pipes running below the ground, because the only thing we care about is actually the distance between the machines and the generator. So the pipes can run as long as we want. I think these three can all run off of the same gas turbine. It's gonna go like here, and these three are gonna operate independently. Now, the most annoying part of making all of these gas turbines would definitely be making the rotors. But since we have the casting mold for the rotor and the extractor, we can extremely simply just place some tin into the extractor and then solidify it into rotor shapes, which really makes this recipe a breeze. Here, as you can see, I've basically just prepared all the materials we need for the machines, mainly because I luckily made 2 more electric pumps in a row, so we didn't need to make them. And now I think we can just go and set up the piping for all of this stuff. And these are just gonna run underneath the pavement and into the turbines. Okay, now we've also got all the rotors we needed, and I think this is enough to make all the machines already. Let's make all the machines I want to make. A fluid solidifier, and I'm missing even more motors. How is that even possible? And even the rotors, I didn't think of that. Okay, never mind, I don't have nearly the stuff I need. Okay, and now I have enough for the 2 chemical reactors I wanted. And I think the chain should be something like chemical reactor into solidifier into chemical reactor, and I'm placing them like this because I actually think I should keep them all surrounding the gas turbine instead of at this distance, because this way they are not gonna lose as much amperage. But before this we actually need to go and make the super tanks. Okay, I've now gone and farmed a bit of materials that we're gonna need going forward. Most importantly, I went and processed most of the lead I got from the silver mine, as well as some antimony, which is what we got from the stibnite in the beneath. Because, asking on the Discord server, someone told me that the reason we cannot have more than 1 machine running at the same time is not because of the distance or something stupid like that, is because our gas turbine is outputting 1 amp of energy, and every machine can request up to 2 amps of energy, if available. So that means that when we have one running, we cannot have a second one unless we're outputting more than 1 amp. And to output more than 1 amp, we can either have more generators, or we can start making batteries. If we start mixing antimony and lead dust, which is poisonous by the way, I should make a mask in the meantime. But basically these we can turn into ingots, and then we can just turn them into plates, and we can make battery hulls. And the battery hulls, we are gonna need to fill them with some kind of dust. We can either do cadmium, lithium, or sodium. The best one in terms of capacity is lithium, so I think I'm gonna go with that because I don't have either of these. And here, as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of dust that's gonna allow us to make a whole lot of batteries. So now I think it's time to go look for some lithium. Okay, so we're gonna be looking for tungstate and lithium. Okay, wait, we found it. Scheelite and lithium. Okay, it's not this one, it's that one. Okay, no, it's this one. Okay. Tungstate, lithium and scheelite. Found it. Okay, it seems bringing the ice with me was not enough to prevent heat stroke. So I think I'm just gonna take what I've got and run away, hopefully making it as close as I can to the ladder. Alright. But all in all, I think we've still got quite a bit of lithium, at least enough for the about dozen batteries I want to make. Okay, now to actually make the batteries, as stated in the quest book, we're gonna need to turn these battery alloy ingots into plates. 2 of these are gonna make a battery hull. And now, with these, we need... Oh right, we also need the canner, I forgot. It's not too bad. Okay, these should be everything, for the pump at least. And now these, we just need to get some lithium dust, which I think we can very easily grind this. And now if we throw this into the canner, we finally got some lithium batteries. Here I've also prepared the materials needed to make 2 more battery buffers. And these instead are the 2 systems that are gonna run off of these battery buffers. So I think the idea is gonna be to have the turbine powering the battery buffer, the battery buffers are both gonna contain 3 batteries, so they're gonna output 3 amps, I think. And our main system is also gonna have a battery buffer, but it's gonna run on 4 batteries, so we're gonna be able to run 3 machines at once. So the idea for this side is gonna be to have the chemical reactor go into the solidifier, go into the chemical reactor, go into the super tank. Instead, the gas collector is gonna go into the centrifuge, so they actually need to be swapped around. And the centrifuge is gonna go into 2 super tanks, which should contain both the nitrogen and the oxygen. And the basic electrolyzer is also gonna produce some fluid, but it's also gonna produce some material. So for now we're gonna have a crate, and to power all of this we're gonna need, I think, 4 times wires, because we're gonna be outputting 3 amps. Yeah, we are not gonna be able to use two times wires. Okay, now the centrifuge should set 2 automatic outputs. Maybe we can only have a single output. Then we're actually gonna need some pipes going out into the super tanks. And instead, the electrolyzer should just be able to output fluids here and items here. This should work. Now, to actually use the electrolyzer, we're gonna need an automatic pump system that's gonna feed it salt water. Okay, seawater. These we're gonna need to bring into the electrolyzer. So I'm just gonna set up a pipe coming up from this pump. So I'm gonna need to also bring the torque power of the water wheel over here. And to bring power to this pump, I think I'm gonna do something like this. And very simply steal it from here. Okay. So now if I now add a pipe, the seawater should start flowing into the electrolyzer, yes. And I think this chain is actually done. Instead, this system is gonna be a bit more complex, mostly because we actually need to go and get the latex from our tank that's just over the beneath entrance. So we're gonna have a pump and a bunch of pipes going all the way into this chemical reactor. But for now, I want to test this system first, so we should be able to grab power from here. Okay, I can hear the thing running. In theory, what should be happening right now is the batteries should get charged, but what's actually happening is the electrolyzer is using the energy. So wait, let's actually break this, and let's let the battery buffer charge. And once this is charged, I'm gonna actually attach the machines. Okay, now I think going all the way from here up to our factory is gonna be such a mess. So instead, what I'm more simply gonna do is just gonna be attaching... Okay, I think I need to use the pump. And this is gonna constantly fill the super tank. So once that's full, I'm just gonna come here and bring it up. And then once it's empty, I'm gonna go back here to fill it up again. I don't think I'm gonna need to make this trip many times. All of our batteries are now charged. So now, in theory, this system should stay dormant. And now if I take 3 batteries, I can place them in, and they're all gonna fill up. Same here. But we are still missing the actual machines. So the gas collector is gonna need circuit 1. But before setting that, I also want to connect the electrolyzer, which should start working immediately. The turbine is able to maintain at least 1 machine. And now if I set this to 1, the gas collector is also gonna start working. And 1 turbine is not enough. This is gonna run empty in 16 minutes. And we're also gonna have this running, so yeah, we are not gonna have this running for a long while, because these are gonna need to run forever. So I think we're gonna need a second turbine to power the battery buffer. And this is also not outputting anything. Okay, now we are. And chlorine gas. Although it's not outputting the gases. Now this one is filling with nitrogen for some reason. Okay, and now it's filling with oxygen. No clue why in front it wasn't working, but... Alright, we've begun passive production. It seems a second turbine is gonna be enough to actually have this run indefinitely. Our syngas amount is going... I don't know, even if it was going down, the next thing I want to do in the next episode is gonna be speeding up the vacuum tubes, because we've got way more creosote and charcoal than we do syngas production. So I was thinking of adding a few, but realistically, if I add like 2 more and have them run even slower, I might as well just have this one run faster. In the next episode, I'm also gonna automate the rubber production, so we're gonna have a bunch of liquid rubber going all at once. I'm not sure what we're gonna use this stuff for. The people on the Discord server suggested I start automating this stuff, and the next step is also gonna be automating phenolic resin, which we're gonna use for, I don't know, a bunch of stuff. Because in the next episode, we can already go for the electric blast furnace, which is a monster of a machine, which is gonna allow us to make aluminum ingots, and that's gonna be, alongside diodes, the entry point to medium voltage. Although, okay, it depends on if I'm able to actually understand how it works, but I do want to get into crate logistics. And ideally, I want to make it before getting into medium voltage. I don't know how useful this is, and I don't know how easy it is to set up, but I do want to actually start getting into it. I think it's gonna look really cool, and I think it could be really useful to actually move stuff around. But that's gonna be for the next episode. For this one, I thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. As per usual, a massive thank you to our channel members: Xosnek, Cycle, Inkling, Marcus Jeanette, Zorbdrip, Noon Movies, Bloopscoop, Duped, Devon Sconholz, and Pete Blade. And until the next one, see ya.